So in factoring, there's three special cases. The first of which is the difference of squares. So this situation arises when I have something squared minus something else squared, and it factors very neatly into those things subtracted and those things added. So if you know the formula, the biggest two things are going to be identifying when that occurs and identifying what A and B are. So let's look at an example. So let's say I have 16x squared minus 25y squared. So we see that I have something that looks like it could be squared minus something else that looks like it could be squared. So we need to identify what has been squared. So my first term here, 16x squared, what could I multiply by itself or square that would give me 16x squared? So if I take 4 and square it, I'll get 16. And if I take x and square it, I'll get x squared. So my A is 4x. And likewise, if I took 5y and squared it, I would get 25y squared. So my A in this case is 4x and my B is 5y. So now that I know what A and B are, I can just plug it into this formula right here and factor it. So A is 4x, B is 5y. So this is going to factor into 4x minus 5y. Close my parentheses, scooch that up, and 4x plus 5y. And there we go. The difference of squares, and that's how it factors. All right, so we also have a difference of cubes, and it works essentially exactly the same way. If you can identify that's what we have, and you can figure out what A and B are, it is just a matter of plugging it then into the formula. So let's say that we have 8 minus 27y cubed. Make it kind of a funky one. So this is being subtracted. Is there something I could cube that gives me 8? And something I could cube that gives me 27y cubed. And hopefully you know the answer is yes, there is. So if I take 2 and multiply it times itself 3 times, so 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 cubed, I will get 8. So I know my A, in this case, is 2. That's what I cubed to get 8. And what do I cube that gives me 27y cubed? It is 3y. If I cube 3 times 3 times 3, it gives me 27. And if I cube y times y times y, that does give me y cubed. So now I know A is 2 and B is 3y. So it's just a matter of plugging it in to this formula. So let me get some equal signs going. So the first part is A minus B. So I have 2 minus 3y times A squared, so A is just 2, so A squared is going to give me 4, plus AB, so that means plus A times B, so I'll have 2 times 3y, and then plus all of B squared, so my B is 3y, so I'm just going to put that in parentheses for the time being and square it. And now let's go ahead and simplify. We already did the 2 squared. Let's simplify the rest. So I have 4 plus 2 times 3y gives me 6y plus 3y squared. So these things are being multiplied, so I gotta square the whole thing. 3 squared is 9. Y squared is y squared. And there we go. So this is our difference of cubes. And so like I said at the beginning of the video, there are 3 different special cases in factoring. There was the difference of squares, the difference of cubes, and we also have the sum of cubes. And just like the previous two, works exactly the same way. As long as you can identify that is what's happening. So we just have something cubed plus something else cubed. And as long as we can identify what those somethings are, A and B in this case, we just plug it in to the formula. So let's try. This one right here. So 64x cubed plus 1. We don't really ever think of 1 as something being cubed, but it is kind of the easiest one to work with. What do I cube that gives me 1? The answer is 1, right? 1 times 1 times 1 will still just be 1. So I know what my b is. Let's start there. B is 1. So if I cube 1, I get 1. So what is A? What do I cube that would give me 64x cubed? The answer is 4x. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64, and x times x times x is x cubed. So A is 4x and B is 1. So here is just a matter of, now I know A and B, I'll plug it into the formula. So I start with A plus B. So I have 4x plus 1. And now A squared, so I have 4x, that whole thing squared, minus A times B, so I have 4x, it's my A, times 1, which is my B, and then plus all of B squared. My B in this case is just 1, but I'll go ahead and put it in parentheses and show that we need to square it. Now that looks mighty funky, so let's go ahead and simplify this. The 4x plus 1 stays as is. And 4x squared, that means 4x times 4x, which gives me 16x squared, minus 4x times 1, which is just 4x, plus 1 squared. 1 times 1 is just 1. And there we go. We factored the sum of cubes.